Hello and welcome to the first inaugural episode of the Let's Talk Hockey podcast here for Lewis University. I'm your host, Logan Cap, and we're going to get straight into things today. I'm going to start off a little bit intro about myself. I've played hockey my entire life. I've done everything there is to do with hockey. I've coached, played, officiated, and I've loved it all. Recently, I've been a lot into officiating. I've officiated now for about 7 years. I've done all the way up through college level hockey, high school, everything below that. I played all the way up through high school as well, and then I did a little bit of men's league with my dad. But just recently, last year, I broke my neck, so I haven't been able to skate in a little over a year. But hopefully, as you know, COVID finishes up here this year, I'll be able to get back on the ice this year. I've also coached hockey, like I said. I've taught everyone from real little kids how to take their first steps on the ice, all the way up through peewees of about 12 years old, just learning the basics of hockey and how the game is played. And I've loved it all. So this podcast will be just talking about hockey here, probably a Lewis a little bit, as well as the Chicago Blackhawks in the NHL, as well as some coaching, some officiating, some playing. Everything there is to do with hockey will be right here on this show. So just like that, we're going to go ahead and get right into it with my first guest of the Let's Talk Hockey podcast. He is a level 4 USA Hockey referee from right here in Lockport. He has been to all the development programs. He's been to the ADP, the ODP, the Central District Camp, Futures Camp. He's done everything from the high school hockey state playoffs to the ACHA, to the USPHL, the NA3s, the North American Hockey League, and the USHL. Please welcome my first guest and my best friend, Mike Pruchnik. Mike, how you doing today?
Glad to be here, Logan.
We're going to get off on a nice, easy, simple question here. How you get into hockey? How, your parents get you into it, or what was that?
Yeah, so I started skating out in Orland Park probably when I was 8 years old. I did it was called Intro to Hockey. And you went out there with a bunch of other kids, and it was like a big just practice for everyone. You can kind of develop your skills, learn how to skate, puck handling, shooting, passing, but it's the basics. It was about an hour session, and then immediately afterwards, it was on Friday night, they'd have open skate for another 2 hours. And after Intro to Hockey, I'd go skate for another 2 hours. And that's how I kind of developed my ability to skate and play hockey. But I never full on, played organized hockey until high school when you told me, hey, you should join my house league or whatever. So then that's the only organized hockey I've ever played for about 8 weeks, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you were also the reason why I started reffing, because you thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to make some money on the side.
Oh, yeah.
And look where it took us.
Right. That was you just getting ahead of me here in my next question. That was going to be my next question, was how you got into hockey and refereeing, but I already know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I'll tell the whole story. You told me one day, hey, I got this great idea. And I'm like, okay, let me hear it.
One of my classic great ideas.
Let's be referees. I'm like, okay, well, I can skate fairly well. I know the game, I know the rules, but you need 2 officials to ref, a youth hockey game, and 1 + 1 = 2, me and Logan. So we can, start reffing our own games. And, it took some time for us to actually get our first games together, but it was a start, and that's how we got going. And now look at us.
Oh yeah. I mean, we didn't even go to our first seminar until this year, which wasn't even in person. We didn't get to go together, just on the old Zoom call. But
yeah,
we've been reffing for a long time now, about 7-8 years. Do you have like a specific game or like a situation that you just like, if you're telling someone you're a ref and they're like, you ever see anything crazy? You ever, you have a story like that?
I actually had 2 in mind. The one was like when I was first starting hockey, and I, like I said, I was talking about the confidence thing or whatever. I remember I went to go make one of my first penalty calls ever. I'm like, okay, boom, that it was a kid took him down. I'm like tripping. Okay, boom, got it. And then play goes on for a little while, and then I blow the whistle. I'm like, okay. Oh man, I forgot who had the penalty. Like I just saw the color of the team. I'm like, okay, the green team's got a penalty. Tripping. They're gonna go down a guy. I'm like, oh, I totally forgot what number. So I had to skate over to the bench. I'm like, oh, sorry, is my new. I just don't know what guy took the tripping penalty, but you guys are down 1, so just put a guy in the box. It was so bad.
That was just like
you hear a lot of other stories from other people that, you kind of just catch on and
Oh yeah,
take
that
right
was like
home.
when my dad refed. Anytime I ref with my dad, he'd call a penalty and be like, "Who was the penalty on?" I'm like, "I don't know. You called the penalty." you know. But yeah, those are some good times.
Hmm.
Um, but this podcast is not just about officiating; it's about hockey in general, including the NHL. So obviously, the NHL just started up not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. We're about 13, 14 games in now. What do you think of these 2 game series that all the teams are playing now? It's like I feel like it brings a playoff type atmosphere to these games.
Absolutely. It actually seems very similar to, baseball. Baseball does the same thing. Instead of 2 games, they usually do like maybe 3 or 4. But I mean, for travel purposes, baseball plays 162 games, and the NHL is now going down to 56. So logistically, it makes more sense because you're only going to be playing the same 7 teams over and over and over. So if you're in the same spot, you play them twice. It's better for logistic reasons, but also I think it's going to be better competitive hockey. Like you said, it's going to be more of like a playoff atmosphere where these teams are going to be remembering the last game that they just played. Maybe there was something that spoiled, like, a big hit or a fight, and then it leads into the next game. So the second game, I think, is always going to be better than the first one. But yeah,
Yeah,
it should be super entertaining for the fans, at least.
yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. It's just something different, instead of like, I feel like sometimes in the regular season, teams get kind of caught in a lull where they're not really trying too hard, or like there's not a whole lot to play for just because there's so many games in the season. But now with only, 50 some odd games this season, every game is really trying to, win that game and win that series, as it were. Um, what do you think about the Hawks this year? I think they've definitely surprised me a little bit.
For the good or for the bad?
For all around, for
Okay.
everything.
There have been the Hawks are a roller coaster, okay? They started if a roller coaster could start just going straight down, that's where they started at because they lost the first 4 games and they were real bad.
The giant
But
drop.
since then, they're actually what 5-0-4.
Yeah,
So they haven't lost a game in regulation since the first 4 games of the season. And you're looking at there's different players stepping up. I like Brandon Hagel. I like the new defensemen that are coming up, but Bedoin, Lucas Carlson, and then even in goaltending, that was the biggest question mark. The first 2 goaltenders did not look good, Subban and Delia, and then Kevin Lankinen comes as the third string, and now he's I would say, the consensus #1 starter, at least 9 games into the season. So, every different guys are stepping up, but that leads for a lot of opportunity later down the road where you can build around maybe that guy that you didn't think was maybe a long time fit.
right. I mean, it's like they're missing some key players with Doc and Taves in the front end. Uh, how do you think they're doing up, with missing those guys? Like, do you think Kane is stepping up more as a team kind of role model since they're missing their captain?
I think so. I think Kane has been in the league for so long that guys look up to him because he's an all-time great. Like anything that dude does is it's unreal. So you have rookies coming in are like, oh wow, that's Patrick Kane. I can learn a lot from him. Just listening to him for the younger guys makes him a leader. But that whole team has, I would say, a couple of captains on it. Like Brent Seabrook, he's a captain, even though he's not the best player anymore, but he's a leader in the locker room. Duncan Keith, I would say it would be the next closest captain behind Taves. Maybe it's an argument you can make, but I mean they've had so many different guys a part of their core when they won those championships with. I know a lot of them aren't gone anymore, but I would say that Kane is picking up the load in terms of Taves' absence.
I think Kane is also picking up the loads in terms of production. I mean, 6 goals, 17 points, in these first couple games. I think he's just having a phenomenal start to the year.
Mm-hmm. And he's found a lot of chemistry with who was that, Kurashev? Another guy you didn't think that was going to be anything when the year started. Now, 9 games in, he's playing with Patrick Kane on the second line.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely surpassing my expectations already. Like you said, the first couple of games of the season that they lost, they did not look good. I think they were just trying to find their footing a little bit, and just trying to figure stuff out. But I think they've definitely figured it out at least a little bit so far. But that's all the time that we have here today. That's all the questions that I have for you. Um, Thank you very much for doing this, and hopefully
That was fun.
we'll get another couple episodes in here shortly. So yeah.